on the left and Renaissance on the right. Vain with the first ban choice. They are not opting for the Superman that we've seen every game so far. They are going for those stalwart twins, those annoying little raccoons that we affectionately refer to as Teamy. And that leaves Renaissance with a bit of a decision. Do they go with the Superman? I mean, this strategy kind of looks like Vain really want a Superman play.
Not going to have it.
Yeah, tough. You can't have it. Does leave Zenial open though, and Zenial been played in I think every game that we've seen today, in fact, and to great effect. So not a surprise to see him as a first pick here for Vain. The Kilgroth is a strong answer though, and again, Kilgroth in week 1 we saw had a very high ban rate. This time he's slipping through those cracks with the introduction of Teamy, and every time he's been picked up for better or for worse. Speaking of something a little bit different though, okay, across the board different, we have 2 mid laners here that we haven't seen too much so far today. We've got a Jinnar pickup and a Raz pickup being accompanied by a Toro.
Oh my. I haven't even seen a Toro in action yet, so now I'm really excited to see how this plays out.
Like Razes and Jinnars and Toros, oh my. So yeah, Toro being picked up here. Toro not considered one of the stronger supports in on the EU server. However, I have seen some amazing plays coming out from Toro players. There are actually one trick out there that play Toro solely. However, the Zethus. I'm surprised we got this far down the draft before Zethus put in an appearance, but he is going to be picked up there by Renaissance and accompanied by a Crest. Crest, one of my favorite heroes to play, one of my favorite heroes in the game, just purely because his kit is so intriguing to me. But he does have a lot of counters. One of the strongest counters in the game at the moment is the Malok. And as soon as a Crest is locked in, often you'll see that Malok returned. And this time, though, Malok was open, but Vain not going to pick him up. They're opting for that Yawn and that Cricknack, and the answer to that will be the Mina for Renaissance. These two sides, a lot of interesting choices coming out here as far as this player pool.
Final game, final roller coaster. That's just how it goes. I mean, we're already looking here at Vain's side, and Zenial, Toro, Raz, Yorn actually coming out one of the tournaments. Now, to say he is not bad. His damage in the late game actually can get scaled, and of course he's a pretty strong ADC that people undermine. But because he doesn't have the mobility and he relies on his flicker a lot, it can be turned into events. And if we're actually looking at the other team right now, Renaissance, we've got Crest and Jinnar, Mina, Zephyrs, and Kilgroth. We're talking everybody who can reach Yorn. So hopefully Toro and Zenio can hold them back just enough that they can't go where they need to go.
Yeah, there is a lot of pressure sitting on those horns of Toro right now to protect that Yawn. Great skin coming out from Yawn as well. Always a fan of that SWAT skin. In fact, if we look at the Officer and SWAT skin, we've got a police team up going on for the Vain duo lane, which I can appreciate that. I can appreciate the matching skins. So these guys clearly were very aware they were the last game of today. They wanted us to go out on a bang. They were like, no, we're not going to pick some standard meta heroes that you guys have seen played 3 other times. And we're going to keep it interesting. We're going to give you something to really shoutcast. So these guys are looking really good right now. And I'm very intrigued to see how this game goes.
Just looking at both of the teams, we can already say that Renaissance does have the aggressor team at the beginning of the game. They can invade quite easily, and they do have enough tank at the beginning of the game that they can make something happen. However, as we've seen before, Zenio coming out of nowhere and just seems to magically blossom over time. And Yorn, at the beginning of the game, as weak as it might be, if you let him get his stacks poked off of the passive, that alone can actually hurt you at the beginning of the game. And depending what Arcana he's running, and I'm going to assume he's actually going with the crit build, he is definitely going to put out some damage.
Yeah, and people underestimate the stun from Yawn early game. I mean, with something like a Crickneck roaming through the jungle, if you can time the CC from Toro and Yawn well, Crickneck will be able to burst, easily burst down a Jinnar if needed. I'm curious to see who's going to go in what lane at this stage in the game, because with the Crest pickup, and the Mina pickup. These are two heroes that both work amazingly well in the support role, but also can work very well in a side lane. And with the Kilgroth as well, you kind of want to give him his own lane. You want him to get farmed. You want him to get to that late game stage. So I'm going to presume it's going to be a duo lane Mina Crashed, or a solo lane potentially Crashed with a roaming Mina. And here, talking about roaming, we can see early aggression here from Renaissance as they make their way towards that Might Golem of Vayne. The Kilgroth, quite intelligently on the top side, is taking the red buff of his own team because they know that it's not going to be needed. Because the enemy team has theirs taken already, so they're probably going to pressure it. And they were right to pressure it because they got themselves first blood as Vayne pick up that Kilgroth whilst he was trying to take his own, their own red buff at this point in time. Meanwhile, we do see the bot lane, a little bit of pressure being applied by the Mina and Kresh. An interesting duo lane, to say the least, though.
Mina is actually taking over the roaming role, so she's going back and forth. She is helping the Kresh out. You do want to leave Kresh alone as well. Let him get a little bit going on top of his build. But Mina, if she just comes out of lane and just pulls you into it, then to stop Kresh from jumping forward against you and pushing you back and just doing some extra damage. I mean, we saw earlier how they're both getting aggressive, which was great. It did happen that the Crick Knight came out on top of that over the Zephyrs. But it's little slips like that you have to look for those pockets. You see guys on one end, you just want to go take the other half. It's the most efficient thing to do at that case.
Yeah, we can see here, though, that duo lane mentality being adhered to by Vayne as they keep the Toro and Yorn together. Now, that is going to mean that experience and gold is going to be shared somewhat, but it does allow you to farm safely in these early stages where, like you said earlier, he is particularly vulnerable. Abyssal Dragon now being danced around by both teams as Renaissance start pressuring him from their side to try and drive back Vayne, who did start the Dragon there. That is going to be a big dive in from Raz, does significant damage, but is going to have to dive back out. This Dragon is going to be taken by Kresh as the Metamorphosis is used to great effect. And we see Toro now is going to be going down as that is the third kill now going over to the side of Renaissance. That was Jannar picking up a kill there as well. And Mina. Everyone kind of grabbing themselves a kill there. Really good play there coming out from the side of Renaissance to manage to secure both the objective and the kills. They won the team fight. They won the objective.
Yeah, and we saw right there in action what you were just talking about. Kresh beautifully ulting and actually catching somebody out, and he was going to capitalize on that. Mina coming out to back them up. And then Zephyrs popping in. And it was Kresh who ended up getting the Dragon, which is the most amazing thing ever. Because whenever a support gets it, you're just like... It's almost that feels good feeling that they got it and not the jungler. But in that situation, they did put a little bit too much pressure there. Vayne tried to recover from that, and it just didn't go in their favor. So they were best to pull out, and they still have time to come back. But that first Dragon, we were talking about the importance of objectives, is going to kind of set their plans back.
It creates a lot of momentum, and we see the pull there and the Dark Dominion used by the Mina onto HN, but HN is going to get himself out of dodge. He's very low, though, and it does mean that the rest of his team are going to be without him, but it doesn't seem to be hindering him at all as Zenial picks up a kill, and so does Raz with the explosive KO used. Ellie is going to be the next focus, and Vayne finding their feet as they take kill after kill, now sitting at 5. Meanwhile, Chiga, though, in the top lane is going to manage to push that tower, at least getting something back for his team. Will it be a trading towers, though, as Vayne start pressuring this mid tower? I don't know. There isn't going to be much of an answer coming out from Renaissance, and I think they will manage to secure this tower, so they will trade towers, but kills go in favor of Vayne. No, they won't. That was a really well played by Zephyrs. Tiniest sliver of health still on that tower. Does mean the gold hasn't been made available to the Vayne team, though, yet, as Mantle now picked up by Kresh, that first big tanky item, obviously going to generate a lot of AoE damage and allow him to get that damage in just by being present. What do we think about these team fights going forward as the Renaissance team start their next Abyssal Dragon?
So far, they're all pulling off the poke comp, as I like to call it, and they're just keeping each other at bay. In this case, Renaissance is actually doing a better job at it. They were able to secure the second dragon over there. But as you're noticing, Zenial, the biggest downfall of it is when he has to leave lane and you leave a Kilgroth. He is wide open to do what he wants, and there's nobody to answer that, and you do take that chance. There's no way to answer it. You want that team fight to go bottom. You want to try to win that trade. That's what you're going to go for, but you do have to understand you're taking that trade for a tower trade, and Kilgroth here is also now sharing jungle as well, so that's setting him apart. Middle is trying to be fought for because of how low it is, and looking how they're trying to wait for that opportunity, could help them, but they need to be very careful at how they plan things next.
Yeah, Vain now sitting at 5 kills to 3, and despite the 2 dragons going over to the side of Renaissance, we actually do see a slight goldie still in favor of Vain, despite that, which just goes to show just how much aggression and how well they're farming at this point in time. Meanwhile, a team fight is breaking out in the mid lane as they go tit for tat. Mina is going to use Dark Dominion, trying to lock down several members of the side, but there goes the Metamorphosis as Rock charges in. Kilgroth, meanwhile, going to be picking up as many kills as he can. Very low underneath the tower as Vain are forced back one by one. Meanwhile, Rock is going to be picking up another kill, but he is tanking that turret, but that's going to go down regardless, and that is great play from the side of Renaissance. The kill did go over to Zenial in the end as he picked up the kill on Crash, but that is definitely going to be considered worth there by the support for Team Renaissance.
Yep, so perfect play coming out from them, Crash. That was his extreme moment to shine, because we saw there everybody grouped up, and then one thing I didn't even realize this at the first time, but like, yeah, now that we're talking about Jinnar and stuff, Mina pulling them in, Jinnar able to ult them, it's just gonna, that's one condition. The biggest condition is Crash getting his ultimate. The team fight starts, they're trying to hold people off the turret. The turret was the bait, and Crash just goes for it. After that, they can dive as they want, Kilgrath joining them on it, and they're just gonna even capitalize on Darkslayer now, because they have that damage working for them. Kilgrath's been doing what he can, Zephyz is in the open, and it seems Vain is going to spot it. They are going to spot it. Is he going to be able to stop it is the question. He does!
He's going to manage to take a kill, and he's going to manage to take... Zephyz is actually going to take the Slayer there. So he did great work in getting in there, did Zenial, but it didn't matter because Renaissance did pick up the Slayer there regardless. And that's going to be mid-tower going down. Rock, the lone defender. He does not have his Metamorphosis up. Rage Bar isn't currently full, but it's not far off being full as the rest of his team will slowly start towards mid to defend here. Vain still playing very aggressive despite the Slayer buff being on the Renaissance side. They need to be very careful. They are going to be looking for this Abyssal Dragon, but they don't have a Zenial with them at this point in time. Of course, he can rejoin them, but they do need to be careful because Metamorphosis is up, and this is a great location for them to pop Metamorphosis if he does want to go for it. Something that I have noticed as well, though, is the fact that Rock doesn't have Disrupt on the Crashed. Normally, you see a lot of Crash because of his dive potential. You see them going with Disrupt as an option, but he's gone with the heal, and there's a lot of heals on the side of Renaissance there. But earlier on, I was wondering why he was taking so much tower damage, and then it slowly occurred to me he actually is a heal Crashed rather than Disrupt. I feel like Disrupt, with the aggression that they're putting out, would have probably been a little bit better for him actually in this scenario, but it's not doing him any harm at the moment.
They're running the triple here double punish build, which is actually a very common one to run with. And if you're going to do that, as you can see, like the plays they've been making, it's very possible as long as they get the turret, especially if they're going to do turret dives, which looks like they are prepping for it again. But the pressure that Renaissance is actually putting on here is very difficult for Vain to fight off. But another thing I have noticed is that Vain is becoming predictable. So, when they're going for a dragon or they're going for the objective, it's becoming clearly obvious, and Renaissance catching on to that, and they are capitalizing on it every single time.
They are indeed, and you can see that's slowly getting out of hand as the gold league creeps up now, in fact, in favor of Renaissance. Vain are doing well as a team, but they, like I said, they are becoming predictable. The teams right now, completely opposite sides of the map. They're probably both looking for each other, but they're not going to find each other until they start making their way towards mid. We're following Toro right now, and we can see that he's going to come towards mid to try and defend alongside Yorn. That's a full Rage Bar sitting on Rock. I wonder if we're going to be seeing a big dive coming out here. Zenial forced off to the side. He is probably waiting for that perfect Angelic Splendor moment. And if that dive does happen, that's exactly going to be when it needs to be used. But not right now. Zenial's just off to the side, and the rest of Renaissance are going to back off.
Right now, if Yorn keeps up the pace that he's working with, gets his items with, he will become someone to be contested with, and it'll be just fine. So they still, their team comp right now, they're going for more of the late game anyway. So if they can just go a little bit more defensive, but they want to go offensive anyway and actually take this chance to take out the Jinnars. The Jinnars are going to be focused down right in this team fight right now. Is it going to work?
Yeah, Nirvana was used and popped immediately. That's going to give him a little bit more protection against the enemy team, but it's not going to be enough as Vain secure that kill onto him. And now they're looking for more as Chiga and Zakri move in. That Zephyz is going to be picking up that kill onto the Kriknak. Vain, 4-2L is just surviving with a tiny bit of health, but is going to be picked up by Crash. Rock is doing some serious work on that giant sea monster. Jigga now is going to be just melting that tower. Look at that kill graph go. And this is why you have to be so wary of a kill graph. And it's why we've seen him banned so often in competitive play, as he just destroys that tower. It doesn't give Vayne a chance to answer. There's the Metamorphosis used as he brushes the enemy back into the tower. That is going to stun many members up, and Ryle is going to be forced back as well as the Javinic. But it doesn't matter because the game is done as Renaissance show Vayne how it's done with that strategic play, snowballing play. Great work from both teams, but very dominating performance there coming out from Renaissance.
Yeah, very good play on both sides of the park. Vayne had a very equal start to Renaissance as they were working with it. It was going well for a start. And then as they were going, like I said, the predictability was just becoming a little too obvious for them. And they were trying to get those objectives, and they were doing a good job. They were holding it. And at some point in time, though, there was just some misplays. And, of course, it was just being capitalized. And Vayne kind of backed up a little bit at that point.
Yeah, you could tell that the initial aggression from Vayne, they had a game plan, and when that didn't go quite to plan, when Renaissance had a great answer for it, Vayne kind of looked a little bit lost. They didn't quite know how to counter the counter, so to speak. And we saw some really good play coming out from the Renaissance side overall, and just a very by the numbers, slow progression. They looked for objectives and they secured them when they could. And a lot of the time, like you said, it was Vayne becoming predictable. Vayne were doing half the work for them on a lot of these big objectives. Then Renaissance were just walking in and finishing them off and taking those dragons and taking those slayers. So yeah, great work coming out from Renaissance there. And yeah, GG to both teams. Yeah, great stuff. Any final thoughts on that game, JBZ?
Overall, like I said, things would have gone in their favor in the late game that Renaissance had the early game, and they kept up that good stuff. But overall, like I said, good plays overall tonight from every team. It was amazing start to everything, and I'm definitely excited to see more.
Yeah,